The Ottoman Empire ruled much of the Middle East for over 500 years, from 1299 until 1918, at the end of World War I. The modern successor states of the Ottoman Empire did not emerge organically. Rather, the European powers gathered together at the Paris Peace Conference in 1919, and they divvied up the lands of the several great empires that were destroyed during the war. World War I has sometimes been called the empire-destroying war because it put an end to 4 multi-ethnic, multi-religious empires: the Russian Empire, the German Empire, Austro-Hungarian Empire that stretched through much of Central Europe, and the Ottoman Empire. It's important to know a bit about the Ottoman Empire. Its institutions and traditions have continued to have a large impact on the region. In this short video, we're going to touch on 2 topics. Who were the Turks, the Ottoman Turks, and why did their empire last so long? Let's begin with the Turks. They're one of 3 major ethnic groups that dominate the Middle East. The 2 others are the Arabs and the Persians. The Turkish people come from Central Asia, and by the middle of the 11th century, Seljuk Turks had descended into Iran and conquered much of that territory, ruled it, and they'd moved up into Anatolia, the landmass that's today the heart of Turkey. This had been the heartland of the Byzantine Empire. The Turks transformed Anatolia from a Greek-speaking Christian land into a Turkish Islamic land. They were excellent horsemen and warriors, which gave them an edge over those that they conquered. Osman, the founder of the Ottoman dynasty, was one of these Turkish tribes wandering around Anatolia, and he was very successful, began to conquer out and consolidate his lands around 1300. By 16th century, the Ottoman Empire had reached its zenith and was the largest empire in the world. Its lands stretched from the outskirts of Vienna, down through the Balkans and Greece, right around the Mediterranean to Somalia in the south, Algeria in the west, and to Iran in the east. Constantinople, the capital of the Byzantine Empire, was conquered in 1453 by Mehmet I, the conqueror, and renamed Istanbul. By 1600, its population reached 700,000, which made it by far and away the largest city in Europe. It dwarfed both Paris and London, that had populations of a mere 100,000. Its mosques, such as the Süleymaniye in Istanbul, were the most magnificent and largest buildings in the world. So why did the empire last so long? The strength, success, and longevity of the Ottoman Empire were due to its powerful institutions, its stability, and culture of relative tolerance, at a time when the European states were in chaos and very intolerant. The pillars of the Ottoman state legitimacy were its dynasty and religion. Religious leadership and loyalty to the Ottoman household were key factors in keeping the empire united. The head of the Ottoman household personified this attachment in his 2 offices as Sultan and Caliph. The title Sultan means the person who holds power, the power holder, and is synonymous with the English word king. The title Caliph means the successor to the Prophet Muhammad, who started Islam. And it is a religious title akin to that of the Pope in the Catholic Church. So this placed the Sultan and the Caliph, which were in one person, at the head of the Islamic religious establishment of Europe, as well as the head of the temporal power. In a pre-modern world where authority and morality was seen to be granted by God, this was a powerful combination. His heavenly mandate was reflected in his Islamic titles, such as the shadow of God on earth. That's what he was announced as. Janissaries formed another major institution. Key to the success of the Ottomans were its military. The Janissary Corps, which formed the first professional standing army in early modern Europe, was at the heart of this rapid expansion. From 1380s to 1648, the Janissaries were recruited through what was called the devshirme system. And this was the taking or enslaving of non-Muslim boys, largely Balkan Christians. Representatives of the emperor would go out to small villages in the Balkans, and they would recruit the best-looking and most fit and smartest Christian boys that they could find. They were brought to Istanbul for conversion and for training in elite academies. They were to see the Sultan as their father. The Janissaries were subjected to strict discipline, but they were paid salaries and pensions upon retirement. They formed their own distinct social class that became one part of the ruling elite of the Ottoman Empire, rivaling the Turkish aristocracy. The brightest of the Janissaries were recruited and sent to the palace schools to become viziers or ministers and run the empire. Through a system of meritocracy, the Janissaries held enormous power. Their loyalty was supposed to be to the Sultan alone, and to this end, they were forbidden to marry or to have children. By the 17th century, the Janissary Corps became corrupt. It was not infrequently involved in efforts to overthrow the Sultan. But for centuries, they provided a level of professionalism, loyalty, and expertise that was unrivaled by monarchies in Europe. The Ottomans established what became known as the millet system, which has been called an example of pre-modern religious pluralism. A millet was a confessional or religious community, a group abiding by the laws, let's say, for Muslims, Sharia law, Christians, canon law, Jewish, halakha. Millet literally means nation in Arabic and Turkish. But the people of a millet were bound to their millets by their religious affiliation rather than their ethnic origins. The head of a millet, most often a religious hierarch, such as the Greek Orthodox Patriarch of Constantinople, reported directly to the Ottoman Sultan. The millets had a great deal of power. They set their own laws and collected and distributed their own taxes. All that was required was loyalty to the empire. Each millet was organized as a social pyramid, the head of which reported directly to the Sultan. In this way, minorities were protected in ways they were not in Europe. During the Spanish reconquest of the Iberian Peninsula, for example, the Spanish kings instituted the Inquisition and forced all Muslims and Jews to choose between conversion or death. Many of the most talented people and most educated people of the Iberian Peninsula fled. They took refuge in Ottoman lands, and particularly Istanbul, where they became valued citizens of the empire. This tolerance and legal protection for religious minorities in the Ottoman Empire was a great source of strength and richness, both monetary and intellectual. Today, in the age of nationalism, this diversity has been a double-edged sword. Religious and ethnic diversity has hindered the formation of cohesive political community, national communities, which is a central feature of nation building. The emergence of nation states in the region has been devastating to diversity. During the medieval and early modern age, however, the institutions of the Ottoman Empire were the source of its stability and its expansion. The Sultanate, Caliphate, Janissary Corps, devshirme, the millet system were all central tentpoles of the empire's longevity and richness. By the 19th century, however, they were becoming a liability. The rise of modern national states in Europe challenged them all. It is little wonder that the abrupt transition from empire to nation, where sovereignty springs not from God, but from the people, has been so turbulent and devastating in the Middle East.